Hello, everyone. As a holistic GP, when we're working with people from a whole perspective rather than just trying to heal what they come in for that day or what we think they might need, it's a whole different way of looking at people and working with people. Before I came to the Insight Foundation, I found out I was really carrying out the caregiver role. I was trying to take care of my patients. I was trying to fix them, make them better, and really pushing at them and putting my agenda on it as well, and felt better about myself because I was trying to get them better, trying to make them better, or healthier really was how I saw it. But and after I started working with the team here, I saw that caregiver role in myself, and I really realized that wasn't helping anybody, especially me, because it was just completely consuming me. I was giving everything I had, trying to fix and change and make better, and like Claudia has explained, you know, when you're doing that, you just give everything, and there's nothing left. And I challenged myself, especially because I went out and worked with Indigenous people all over the world. And, you know, they were really broken in many, many ways, and trying to help them get better and fix it, it really just, it wore me out and actually caused me to leave medicine at one point because I had just used myself up. So coming here and learning about cord clearing and learning about boundaries and holding boundaries, and learning about holding space, because that's really what I found is the most important thing for the patients, is holding a space for them to be, however they are, but holding that space of hope and courage and trust, that whatever it is that's going on, they can find their way through it. They can find the other side of it, that they're not broken, as Claudia used the term. They're not damaged, that there's something there, and you can almost find joy in it. You can find, illnesses give you a gift in many, many ways. Being a physician, I get to be with people at their most vulnerable times, at their most, you know, when you're in a delivery room and you're delivering a baby, or you're in a death room and someone's dying, that is when they're the most raw and the most real. And if you can be there for them and hold that space for them, to be who they are and to allow them to be who they are, it's magic. It really is magic. And I'm so glad that I now can do that without trying to fix anything that's in the room. But to be there and hold that for them. So the techniques that we learn here about clearing ourselves and having psychological clarity and knowing what those weak points of ours are, so that we're not bringing that into our jobs or into our patients or projecting them onto the people that we're seeing, to know, to really be the clearest I can be, so that I can hold the clearest space for that person who's in front of me, to be the clearest they can be. That's really what I've found that working with the Insight Foundation has taught me to do, to be there, to be that very clear vessel, to be that, just have that clarity, so that you can hold that space, so that person can also find their own clarity and their own innate wisdom and their own innate ability to heal, and to find their way through. Yeah, so that's the joy that I get doing this, and that it's brought to me to be able to do it, to be able to hold that space for people. Yeah, so the question was, if a patient presents with a physical ailment, how open are they to dealing with what may be underlying that? And it really varies on the patient. I see my role as always offering that, as always For example, a real good example, someone comes in with high blood pressure, and I can then say, okay, well, you've got high blood pressure. Here's the ways we can deal with it. You can take medication. You can, try and alter your diet, get more exercise. You can also think about meditation and Tai Chi or Qigong. Or you can also look at, where's the anxiety in your life, and what's driving you, and are you anxious, or is there, are you running on your adrenal glands all the time, which is making you be always hypertensive. So I try and give patients choices, and then it's their choice. And my hope is that, if they still choose the medication, that's okay, that's their choice. But that I've given them maybe a little something that maybe 5 minutes, 10 years, 20 years, who knows, that they may say, oh, maybe there's another way than always reaching for the easy solution. So as far as how many people are open, it really depends on the people. In my holistic practice, I would say probably 90% are open. In my indigenous practice, I would say probably 10% are open. But for me, it's always offering that other way, just holding that out as, here's your choices. And that, again, then gives them a choice. It's not I'm telling them what to do. You have to, if you don't do this, you're going to die. So how many doctors do that? It's, talk about putting fear in and not putting love in, It's like, these are your choices. I remember I had, when I worked in New Zealand, I had a lot of, kind of tough blokes that would come in, oh, come on, doc, give me your worst. How are you going to yell at me now, aren't you? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm just, here's your cholesterol numbers. Here's your risk. Here's what you can do. What do you want to do? What do you want to change? Is there anything you want to change? You don't have to change. It's okay. And they'd be like, what do you mean I don't have to change? I'm like, it's your choice. I'm giving you your information. It's your choice to what you do with your information. You don't have to do anything. You can keep eating the way you're eating. You can keep living the way you're living. That's fine. That's your choice. But if you want to change, here's some things you might want to do. So always offering that to them. It's also important to really talk in the person's language. I find with some of my male clients, I talk in car parts, like, okay, your thyroid's your carburetor in your car, and, really talking about, using cars. I had a lot of fishermen, so I use fishing terms, to learn what they understand. Because if I talk in medical terms, they have no idea what I'm talking about. So to really know where they're coming from, and I guess the word for that would really be empathy, to understand what's their life, what's their life made of, and what is important to them in their life, and then trying to explain something in their terms so they can understand it. So if I talk about carburetors, or I talk about fishing gear, or I talk about, bait, or whatever it is for them, then they can understand better where I'm coming from and how I'm relating to them. Then they understand, they get the message, and they take it home, and it's on their level. But if I'm talking to them as, a medical doctor, and I'm using medical terms, they have no idea what I'm talking about. In fact, I think medical school, you spend 8 years learning how to speak this strange Latin, and then the rest of your life learning how to speak English again, so you can actually talk to your patients and communicate with them. Because as Claudia shared, there's this mystique that's put around, oh, I'm the doctor, I'm going to put my white coat on, and that's going to protect me from you, who might contaminate me, and and that's the words come from too. It's like that mystique of, I'm better than, or I know better than, and therefore I can tell you what to do, and it's not about that, because that really pushes people away and puts fear in, and creates that whole, like I was talking about that gentleman coming in, oh, you're going to yell at me, aren't you? I'm doing bad. It's like, no, you're doing your life, So taking off that white coat, I've actually only wore a white coat when I had to in my training, because it puts that barrier between the patient and you, and taking off that white coat and just being there with that patient as yourself, you know, who I am. And I very much agree with Claudia about, you know, then you don't have to worry about when you meet them in the grocery store and they're looking in your trolley like, oh, what's the doctor eating? You know, it's, yeah, okay, that's what I'm eating. It's okay, it's just me. You know, that's who I am. And I'm real and you're real, and we all have a life and we're all people. So yeah, some people are very open and some people aren't. And some people come in not thinking they're open, and something will just, that little penny will drop or that key will turn, and all of a sudden all those possibilities open up. So, and it's just being there and holding that space for them to be able to do that. Yeah, so the question was about how all the modalities can work together in a particular instance, and Simon chose a broken bone, which is probably a little bit of a difficult one, but I'll try that. We used to, back in the shamanic days, and you'll hear the Aboriginals and that, when someone broke a bone, people could heal it and knit it energetically. So you could knit a bone and do it energetically. My own viewpoint on that is yeah, you can do it energetically, but it takes an awful lot of energy. And if every one of you had a broken bone in this room, you know, how much energy would we use to heal those bones? So using all the modalities we have, so now we know how to fix bones. You know, we can splint them or cast them or you know, put internal fixation on so that they hold and they do heal, so that we don't have to expend as much energy to the healing. Then you use the naturopathic remedies, and Kim would be much better at speaking to that than I would, but you know, the comfrey and the naturopathic, and then putting your own healing energy into it as well. You know, so using all those modalities, using homeopathics for pain control and those types of things. So you know, don't only use one modality, use them all, but a broken bone is probably best fixed by fixation nowadays, because we know how to do that and we can do it, and it takes a huge amount of energy to do it the other way, but not to stop any of those other ways. You know, I've seen people who have done amazing things with, you know, putting comfrey in their cast, under their cast, using arsenic. I mean, the healing, you can speed up the healing immensely by using other modalities as well. So the question Simon's talking about is also the underlying issues. So when someone presents with a broken bone, most medical doctors would just fix the broken bone and send them on their way. The question is, why did you actually break this bone? You know, what happened? Were you rushing? Were you in urgency? So you tripped and fell and broke your arm. Were you, is it a way to actually stop and rest and really have a time to look at your life? So yeah, there's always that underlying thing that if you dig deep enough, you'll be able to find and to bring out. So yeah, it's really important to do that. And again, some people are open to that and some people aren't, but it's really important just saying, well, what I usually say is, what was happening at the time this occurred? And I actually do that with most everything that I see people with, because what was going on in your life at the time this occurred? Because then it gives me a bigger picture and idea of what was happening around the incident. And that gives me some ways of then maybe saying, oh, so you tripped over the cat because you were rushing to answer the phone, because, so why were you rushing to answer the phone, or what, you know? So then you have some ways in to kind of ask those little questions that they may get their aha. But it's important not to give them their aha, because they need to come to that aha themselves. Yeah.
I had the experience, I broke an arm, and at the time it meant I had to stop my acrobatic career.
Mm-hmm.
And that brought up a huge amount of, suddenly I didn't have my career.
Right.
So suddenly I began to feel all kinds of things.
Yeah.
That if I just plodded along my way wouldn't have been so in my face. It was a healing opportunity. And something like a psychologist with these kinds of skills, or a Cosmosis facilitator at the time, along with a splintered arm and some comfrey and some herbs and things, would be just fantastic.
Well, that's where your Cosmosis mentor would be really useful and helpful to you, because you're working with them on a one-on-one basis, and you would share that episode with them, and then they would help you really delve into what's going on, what's the underlying. If the medical person you worked with didn't do that for you, that's where your mentor comes in, and your mentor would really then work with that with you to go underneath and know what's coming up for you. And the sad point is that many people are bankrupt by medical illness. So it certainly brings up survival stuff in people as well, not only being ill, but the survival. If you're the breadwinner and all of a sudden you're no longer able to go to work. I mean, a lot of illness brings up survival issues in people, and then you can get down into some of those really base issues that maybe you weren't able to access in any other way, but that would be your mentor would really be helping you with that and working with that. And again, it's really important to be very honest and open and exactly how am I feeling about this. So one of the problems in the system is that, and doing some research, it was really shocking to me to find that I think it was half of the doctors in the US are running either just breaking even or running in the red. And we would all be shocked by that. It's like, whoa, how could that be? They charge a lot and they see a lot of patients, and but they're not making a profit, and they're pushed to and to do more. And there's a couple facets of it, so I'm going to kind of go through each facet. One is the financial, and part of that financial burden is the malpractice burden, and the burden of the amount you have to pay to cover you for malpractice is huge. And unfortunately, Australia, I'm sorry to say, is getting more litigious than America now. So that litigious society has created a huge expense within medicine that shouldn't exist. So doctors are, part of what they're earning is to pay for that insurance, that malpractice insurance. So that needs to change so that the whole way we deal with patients changes. The other part is that there's also this, and again, it's part of the caregiver role of a doctor, but that you need to be there for everybody, and that you need to take everybody in who needs to come in and needs to see you. And so you work as quick as you can so you can see all the patients that need to be seen. And to change that model to the model I'm trying to work with, which is I'm giving you time to be with me so that I can really learn about you, and then maybe keep all the emergencies, from happening, or we're working together so that everything can kind of come up in that session. But a lot of doctors, and I was that way as well, before I started the Insight Foundation, was, I see as many patients as I can because they all needed to be seen, and I had to serve the whole community, and oh my God, what if that patient didn't get seen, and that little kid had an earache all night, and then their eardrum ruptured, and, so there's that pressure on doctors to really, get everybody seen. And then also, if you are an employee of a system, they also pressure you. I left my private practice when they told me I could no longer have half-hour patient appointments with my patients. I said, fine, then I really don't want to work for you anymore, because this is what I feel is important. But again, when you're a new doctor and you're going out into practice, they put that model on you, and then that's the model you think is right. So it's, again, opening up and allowing a different way to be. But, being a doctor is expensive. Medications are expensive. I mean, my medical table was like $4,000 on sale, but it's, again, you're a doctor so you can afford it, it's like our medical conferences, our CMEs. I mean, you can't, sorry, for those continuing medical education, they charge huge amounts of money. Whereas if someone else was going to that same location and that same event, there wouldn't be that huge amount of money. So there's also that, those mindsets. So those mindsets need to start changing so that the way medicine is practiced can start to change. But it's multifactorial and multi-level, so it's the doctors need to change, the patients also need to change. We all need to change. The whole system needs to change. I really loved practicing in New Zealand because it was truly socialized medicine. And there were problems in the system a bit, but it worked because everybody had the same level of care. Everybody got to see the same people, and there was a small fee to come in, but it wasn't a huge fee. And again, we also make people dependent. Medicine creates dependency in so many ways. So, I've got to see my doctor because I don't know how to take care of myself. And creating, changing that dependency to self-care and taking care of self is really important. I can't tell you how many times I've either had a phone call or gone into the, had a mother come rushing into the emergency room with a baby. It's like, what's wrong? They've got a fever. Well, did you give them paracetamol? Well, no, I just came here. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's give them some paracetamol and see what happens, So it's really re-empowering people because the medical system has taken the power away. And partly the medical system's part, and partly, there's no room to find fault, but that has happened. And so we need to re-empower people to find their own innate healing and their own innate, how do I care for myself, so the self-care. So when we do that, that'll really help that number of patients, and but it's multifactorial. So I was talking before about how much I loved working in New Zealand and the socialized medical system. And one of the things that happened there is you were paid per patient. So if I had 100 patients, the government gave me a lot of money for each one of those patients. If I kept those patients healthy, then I had that whole pot of money for that whole year. If those patients got sick and I needed to see them a lot, then all of a sudden that pot of money I had for them was no longer there. So it really engendered that keeping the patient well and healthy, and that's the system that there used to be in ancient Egypt and in China, where you were paid by the state to keep the patients healthy and well. And medicine really has changed to we're paid to keep the patient sick, because we're paid by the number of appointments that we see, not the number of patients that we keep well. And so it's changed the whole, it's all gone topsy-turvy. And probably part of that is because the medical system took on the caduceus for commerce rather than the medical one. So we have two snakes rather than one. And so it has become a commerce, it has become a business. And so we're now paid by the number of people that are ill in our practice. And when I was in New Zealand, I actually lost money if my patients were getting sick because they needed to see me more often. And I made more by keeping them healthy and well. And so that's one of the problems in the medical system, is it has turned upside down, where the doctors are paid really for keeping people sick rather than for keeping people well and healthy. And so if we can start doctors learning to empower people to be healthy and being paid for that and being rewarded for that, it would change the whole system of medicine. Ooh, the drug companies. I don't even want to touch that one. But I would say that I used to be very judgmental, and I now also am holding compassion for the drug companies because they are doing what they think are best as well. So holding compassion and not being anti is really where I think we need to be.